Hey, all my Scorpio friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today to talk about Saturn's transit into Pisces and Pluto tipping its toe into Aquarius this year, starting in March 2023. I think this is a very pivotal energy, and I wanted to devote a video to each one of the signs so that we could really look at the houses and the aspects so that you could prepare for when we get into January 2024 and Pluto moves into Aquarius for the next 20 years, and Saturn will stay in Pisces until February 2026. So this is a long transit that is going to offer a lot of opportunities and a lot of realizations, I think. So let's start off with a little bit of business. These videos are based on whole sign Western astrology, so I'm addressing Scorpio rising. If you don't know your rising sign, you can check out any one of the free birth calculators on the internet. All you need is your exact time of birth and your location in order to determine that information. Also, these videos are based on Pacific time zone. So when I talk about a day, I'm talking about it from Pacific time zone. Please adjust for your location. These videos are also very relevant to Scorpio moon and Scorpio sun. So if you are watching this and you don't know your rising sign, check out where it is. There'll be a video for you. And then come back to this video and check it out because, again, it's going to have influences on all our personal points. So where I want to start is with Saturn moving into Pisces on March 7th. It will stay in Pisces for all of 2023, traversing through the 0 to 7 degrees. It will go retrograde on June 17th, and it will retrograde from 7 degrees Pisces all the way back to the 0 degree before moving forward again in November, on November 4th, 2023. I think this is significant because we have been experiencing a series of full moons at the 16th degree, and the 16 reduces down to a 7. This started with the Aries full moon in October 2022 and will continue forward until the Libra full moon in Aries season in 2023. 2023 is a 7-year. So we're seeing a lot of synchronicity here with the 0 to 7 degrees, the 7-year, the 7 full moons offering illumination and culmination of cycles that have now sort of, I don't want to say worn out their welcome, but there are certain things that we're getting to transform and transmute. So for my Scorpio, Saturn is going to move into your 5th house. By nature, Saturn rules authority, tradition, history, duty and obligation, karma, determination, discipline. What is sustainable? Saturn doesn't like potential. Saturn doesn't like to base things on a what if. Saturn wants to see things concrete, built in the material world. It wants to feel the mastery of its building and its ability to make money and stand in leadership. It also represents old age. It represents the bones, the teeth. It represents the end of life, as does the sign of Pisces. It represents the father, our public status. And it represents tradition, okay, traditional structures. And it doesn't really matter whether those structures are working properly. It's just more about the historic and the traditional dynamic of it. So here, as Saturn moves into your 5th house, the 5th house is naturally a very creative house. It's naturally ruled by Leo, where your personal expression gets to have a platform. It rules the performer and the clown, are a couple of the key archetypes. And then we superimpose the energy of Pisces. Pisces is super creative. It is musical, and it loves poetry and dance and fantasy and filmography and photography. So it's a super creative and warm and compassionate and empathetic energy. And here with Saturn here, I believe that it's going to look at Scorpio and say, what do you want to build in the way of your own personal entertainment and expression? And are you willing to be disciplined? And are you willing to be tenacious? And I don't think it's with the actual act of creating as much as it feels like this energy within me that is asking me, do I feel viable? Do I feel palatable to an audience? Do I think people will like me? Scorpio by nature is an intense sign. At least most people think that. I really love Scorpio because to me, Scorpio is real. It gets beneath the superficial faces that we show the outside world, and it plays to our deepest psychology. It's the sign that rules the commingling of other people's money, which can be a power play in some situations. It rules sex, which can be a power play in some situations. So here, Saturn is sort of looking at this and saying, I don't want to play power. I want to feel my power, and I want to build my power here in the material world. And I think this has to do with creativity. It can also have to do with building romance and building a family in the form of conception of children. I feel like it's important to really look at what Pisces has in the way of, there's a bit of an energy of feeling unseen. Pisces rules the 12th house. This is where we spend time alone in solitude. It's where we sequester people who are outside the norm of the human structure. It represents mental hospitals and institutions. It represents where retirement homes and where we live out the old age living. I don't like to use the word old age home, but it's applicable. It rules orphanages. It rules places of feeling a sense of abandonment in a way. I don't know if that's quite the right word, but when we've been put in a mental hospital and our power has been taken away from us, we can feel abandoned, unseen, and not valued. So now Scorpio is not one to not feel valued. So here, this is, am I not seeing myself? Am I not recognizing my talents? Am I letting the parts of me that are fixed, am I letting them anchor me into oceans of emotion that don't serve me, that just create this tumultuous energy that makes me want to escape, makes me want to just give up my power and acquiesce to something else so that it seems easier, but I don't think it is. Also, Pisces by nature rules the fluids of the body. It rules viruses, transmuted diseases like STDs. It rules the feet in the body and the fluids in the body and the lymphatic system of the body. So a lot of this is going to potentially come up around the idea of the fifth house conception of children and the superimposing of structures based on the medical community and how we have evolved that. Oftentimes when I'm watching television, I will see commercials that don't say if something is going to happen to you. It'll be more of a when, when your kidneys fail, when your eyeballs fall out of your head, when, everything falls apart. And I don't necessarily think that's true. So here, I feel like looking at Saturn moving into Pisces, I feel as if there is Scorpios out there that are looking to conceive children, to bring children into this world, having a discerning eye about the advice you get from your medical community, deciphering what resonates with you and what feels like it's in some ways being superimposed upon you, a structure that's being superimposed on you. Having to take one thing in order to facilitate taking another thing that may be empowering your body or may be inadvertently disempowering one level of your body while it's empowering another level. I'm using rather broad terms because frankly, I don't want to kick the algorithm in here and get blocked, but this is really about a discernment and trusting and inner knowing. I feel like one of the reasons why Scorpio is such a psychological planet is because it sees deep beneath the surface and can identify toxic energies. And in identifying those toxic energies, it's now compelled to show balance in power. power. And I think that might be something we're seeing with Saturn's influence here. I don't necessarily, I have felt Saturn in a rough way, but I also feel like Saturn is very akin to Coach Boone in the movie Remember the Titans, where the initial energy appears very repressive, and I'm asked to perform in a way where my emotional body is not being considered. But I feel like Saturn can see down the line, and Saturn says, if you can endure this what appears to be difficult path, when you get over here, there's big reward to be had. So Saturn builds in the material world. Scorpio builds in the material world. Scorpio rules billionaires, rules finances in many ways, finances through other people. So there's a couple things going on here. Number one, you can create something of your own that you can birth out into the world and create money for yourself. And you don't have to give up your day job during this process. In the beginning, it could be about the conception of the idea, the creating the structure for the idea, and then rolling out that structure in a way that allows you to see the viability of it and then adjust as necessary. We also have Pluto dipping its toe into Aquarius, which is your fourth house. And to me, this is really an opportunity for Pluto to, again, maybe bring up and bubble up any of the deep-seated issues that would hold you back from being able to birth those fifth house things. There is an imprint that is put on the human through our family experience. It can be good, it can be bad, it can be somewhere in between, but it is an imprint nonetheless. And Pluto is the planet that is going to dig deep to that imprint and bring it to the surface and require any energies that are toxic to be evolved past or to be transmuted. Pluto will enter Aquarius on March 23rd, and it will retrograde on May 1st, eventually getting back into Capricorn, which is your third house, on June 11th. It will stay in Capricorn until October 11th, where it will go forward again, re-entering Aquarius in January 2024. And it will traverse between the 0 degree of Aquarius and 27 degrees Capricorn. This is very powerful because this is a teeing up for the 20-year period of Pluto moving into Aquarius, where we are going to see innovations like never before, technological advances being implemented into our everyday structures that we haven't seen since the 90s and cell phones. I also think this is important because for me, this is not about, Pluto is often considered death and destruction, dying, trauma, and chaos. But oftentimes those experiences, while physical death is a natural part of life, the ramifications of a physical death can send us into a trauma that changes our belief system, which takes us into the natural ninth house of beliefs. Who am I? Why am I here? What's the purpose? So it's by nature, Scorpio is a very transformational house. So I feel like with your ruling planet in the house of home, it's liberating you from some old story. And when I say liberation, I don't really mean a release. I mean an incorporation, a way of looking at what's happened to me or what I've experienced. And rather than try to throw the baby out with the bathwater, we're using that dark spot to make the color pop. It's like it's like bringing an intuitive awareness of an old imprint. And do I want to truly play to the old version of what's been expected of me? Scorpio gets a lot of grief for being stingy, for being difficult. And I don't think that Scorpio is that difficult when we are willing in our relationship to Scorpio to be as authentic to our deep core as Scorpio is. And if for some reason you're not being authentic to your deeper core, the combination of Saturn moving into Pisces and Pluto moving into Aquarius will bring this to the forefront of your experience. So I think that's really powerful and important. Let me quickly look at some of the things I wanted to just encapsulate or summarize for you. Saturn in Pisces can feel a little duplistic. initially, it can make you feel like you're being victimized by something, could bring up a martyr type energy. Nobody ever sees me. This always happens to me kind of energy. And at the same time, Saturn's going, wait a minute, if this is always happening to you, then you're the common denominator. What is your perception? What are you feeling? What are you operating on? Are you thinking if you twist yourself into a pretzel, somebody else will be more accommodating to you? Because that's usually not really how it plays out. So these are the deeper truths that can bubble up through this experience. But when we surrender to those deeper truths, the transformation from the caterpillar to the butterfly becomes a beautiful, beautiful journey, and a journey of true empowerment. So that which has been unconscious becomes conscious for transformation, for our power and for our sustainability. That's what I want to say. The 12th house, while it rules many things, it is a place of quiet and a place of dreams, and a place where we get to really connect with spirit at a deep level and an authentic place that transcends the human experience. So here I want to offer the Pisces energy in your 5th house is your willingness to look deep at what brings you joy, at what makes you feel laughter and frivolity and feel like this ride of life is fun. And I think that's where it's so, over the next couple of years, I think you can really reinvent your experience, as you don't purport the fixed energy that pulls you under. That's what I'm trying to say, because the having your ruling planet in Aquarius is all about breaking tradition. And if tradition has had you behind the 8 ball, or you being less than, that's the tradition that we're going to blow up. So I think that's important. On sort of a mundane level, the challenges of the 12th house are addiction, victimhood, a lack of identity, a lack of feeling direction, feeling overwhelmed by unconscious urges, and feeling insignificant. So in your 5th house, this could be feeling insignificant in your romance, insignificant in how you're interacting with the joy and the people that bring joy into your life. And this is about now creating opportunities, which is an opportunity to see where maybe you've been trying to be in a couplehood or in a romance with somebody who isn't very demonstrative. Or maybe, as a Scorpio, you're a highly physical, sexual being, and you're trying to be in a relationship with someone who's not that sexual. And your willingness to say, wow, no harm, no foul, but these two energies don't match. Then we're going to start to see a little bit of reconciliation. And I say that I'm reconciling my experience. I'm understanding my experience a little bit more. Miley Cyrus recently came out with a song. A lot of people are familiar with it, Flowers. And, it's been sort of an anthem and a callback to her relationship with Liam Hemsworth, I think his name is. I quickly went and looked at their charts. Well, Miley is technically a Sagittarian sun. She has a Scorpio moon. And then I saw Liam as a Capricorn, not always matching. So I could see where there could be a problem, where her being free to express herself sexually made him ask her to behave in public. And so that was very interesting. And I think that might come up as the opportunities for you to see where we don't want to push a square peg into a round hole and then create a villain as a result of it. The opportunities are to express yourself artistically, to allow yourself to connect with the collective consciousness, to find inspiration and passion within your 5th house endeavors. And if indeed you want to have a family and you want to create little humans, then being very excited about that and connecting with spirit, meditating and talking to the soul of the potential child that will be yours would be a really powerful energy. And at the same time, that endeavor may start to balance out some of your 4th house characteristics or issues. We all have issues from our experiences growing up. Okay, I think that's it for what I wanted to talk about. We're going to derive wisdom from self-awareness of ancestral patterns and imprints, illusions, self-deceptions, escapism, confronting any lies that anything that lies beneath and unseen and under the surface that is enabling us to be less than what we rightfully get to be. Saturn is going to ask us to be responsible for ourselves. It's going to, in some ways, Saturn in Pisces can initially feel a little depressing. And I feel like this is where Scorpio is actually pre-designed to push back a little bit on that depression and instead kind of look back at the characteristics and saying, okay, how am I willing to take power and control over myself? Where am I willing to walk through my self-doubt, walk through any fear, and walk through any anger or resentment I may be carrying? Mars is your co-ruler as well. So that could come into play. All right, now let's go through some dates that I think are going to be significant for this springtime. As we're going to see Saturn and Pluto at the 0 degree, all in the month of March. To me, this is akin to the idea of a baby being birthed from the womb, where it was all warm and cozy, and then you get this jarring energy of being out in the physical world where it's cold and you're naked, and it just feels so weird. Maybe that's why babies cry when they're born. Ah, it's too cold out here. So this is really going to be very powerful. We're going to feel Saturn at the 0 degree of Pisces in your 5th house from March 7th to the 15th. And then on the heels of that, on the 23rd, Pluto moves into Aquarius. So there's this really strong infusion of something new happening, but it still feels unmolded. It still feels sort of like, when a newborn baby can't hold their head up. They haven't got their bearings yet. That's a better way to put it. So this is a time to establish your bearings and your intentions. On the 19th of April at 9:32 p.m. Pacific, we'll have our first solar eclipse of the year. This is at 29 degrees, 50 minutes of Aries. A lot of people are putting it at 0 degrees Aries, which feels odd to me because it feels like I'm moving towards the Taurus energy. So I'm going to stick to the number 29. And this is making, this solar eclipse is on the cusp of your 7th house of Taurus. And there's a lot going on in Taurus right now. Uranus has been transiting Taurus for quite some time, and the nodes have been there. The nodes of South Node has been in your 1st house. The North Node has been in your 7th house. So the North Node is what we're stretching for, what we want to experience, what we want to create. It's a ravenous energy. It's like, I really want that. I really want that. And the South Node is sort of this habitual energy, what's familiar, our familiar perceptions, our familiar points of view, our familiar reactions to things. So you're really getting to look at yourself and say, how do I react to things? And is this serving what I want to experience in my house of partnerships, and also the house of diplomacy, harmony, peace, and of beautiful things? The 7th house is naturally ruled by Venus. So I think this is really important. So as you pay attention to what this eclipse illuminates, what the sun shines on it, a sense of individuality within your 6th house matters. And that is the matters of your health, the matters of your employment. Now, I would tend to think more about employment or employees as we're going to the Saturn activity is in a sign of creativity, in a house of creativity and of birthing that into the world. So I think this is going to start to give you an opportunity to experience yourself in a new way. But again, as you experience it, it feels much more on a mental level or a psychological level as I begin to map out a plan. On May 1st, Pluto will be at 0 degrees going retrograde in Aquarius and making a square to the nodes. Pluto isn't going to leave 0 degrees, but the idea of one time we're moving forward, then we're moving backwards. This is an opportunity to review. As we experience these energies, the jarringness, as they go retrograde, we get a chance to settle in, to review what we've experienced in that initial hit. And now we can be more intentional about the direction we want to move. Now, when we talk about squaring the nodes are going to be squared by Pluto for quite some time, because as they leave the Taurus Scorpio axis, and as Pluto is traversing between Capricorn and Aquarius, they're creating tight aspects, and then they loosen up a little bit, and then they get tighter again, because the nodes are going to move into the Libra Aries axis in the middle of the year. There'll be other video. I'll do another video on that. But for now, as you experience this, what I call a square feels like a tense conversation between an old aspect of me, or a patterned, imprinted, reactionary part of me, and then this evolved part of me that I'm really trying to root into this physical experience. And this is why it's creating this tense conversation, because a part of me wants to get out there and use my stinger and be like, you know what? And the other part of me goes, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to have to maybe choke that down a little bit until I can figure out how to work that energy in a way that can be heard and productive for all parties. So I think that's important. On the 5th, just a few days later, we have a lunar eclipse at 14 degrees Scorpio. If you have anything at 14 degrees Scorpio or close to it, within, I would say, a 4 to 5 degree range, this is going to be very palatable, and it will resonate to themes that we experienced on the eclipse axis last year, which was on the Taurus Scorpio axis. So this is all about your first house. And in your 7th house, the sun will be in Taurus in an exact conjunction at 14 degrees with Uranus. This eclipse, if it does not bring information the day of, over this next 6-month period of time where it has influence, will be something that will really illuminate you and allow you to liberate yourself from any energies that really have not served you blossoming. And I want to offer it this way, because as I look at Uranus transiting your 7th house, I feel as if not only can it liberate you from relationships that may not serve you, it can also bring about relationships that are more authentically aligned to the truth that you are willing to look at in yourself. Again, I kind of like to use that analogy of, a highly physical person and then a person who is not really interested in physical touch. They don't really commingle very well. So if you have been engaging in relationships with opposing dynamics, the illumination of that may make it like, okay, no harm, no foul, don't need to be upset. Just realize we don't quite mesh. We don't quite work very well together. And this may transpire over the subsequent months of this year. On May 16th, again, here's Pluto at 0 degrees retrograde. Now it's making a square to Jupiter as Jupiter enters your 7th house of Taurus. And I kind of think this is beautiful because it is making a square to the North Node and Jupiter at the same time, illuminating your beliefs about partnership, your beliefs about being happy in partnerships. And I feel like as if whatever happened during the lunar eclipse, and if for some reason that eclipse saw the ending of a relationship, your willingness to sort of step out of whatever might feel as if something's happening to you and realize something's happening for you. Because Jupiter represents our beliefs, it represents expansion. And with Pluto making this square, right, within, I don't know, a few days of the eclipse, it feels as if it's asking you to revisit if what you're endeavoring is working for you, if it's really giving you what you think you want. Because we inadvertently believe certain things based on our childhood. So as an example, my dad was a very nice man, but not a very loving father. The thing I remember most about him is, love ya, gotta go. That's what he would always say to me. I love ya, I gotta go over here. Everything was more important than me. And I started inadvertently to get an imprint on myself that everything was more important than me. And while there's still that imprint on me, I have the consciousness now to ask myself if that is still relevant and current at this stage in my life. This is what this Pluto square with Jupiter and the North Node is asking you. If what you believe about who you are and what you are in relationships is indeed transpiring in your life, or are you inadvertently operating on an old story? And rather than villainizing the old story, an awareness of it allows you the privilege of moving out of it. Now that takes us to 20th of May, when Mars enters Leo, your 10th house. Mars has been in Gemini. Right now, as of filming this, Mars is still in Gemini. It's moving forward now. It will move into Cancer. It's not its most favorite sign, but when it gets into Leo, it's going to be like, oh, a breath of fresh air, fire and fire. And the idea of it being in your 10th house gives an opportunity for you to truly transform as your ancient ruler Mars makes your transformation in the house of Leo, which is the natural 5th house where Saturn has moved into Pisces and allowed you an opportunity to express yourself in a visible platform. And while this Mars is making an opposition to Pluto in Aquarius, this may be where you feel a little bit of tension between the story that you have from your upbringing and the story that you're purporting up in your 10th house now, because this is making a T-square now to Jupiter and the North Node. So we're seeing this real theme during May of looking at my beliefs and if they're current, if they're pulling me under or they're excelling me and propelling me forward. And the thing about it is we look at our beliefs and we look at them and the ones that are really affecting us are the ones that don't pop up in our mind right away. They're the ones we have to excavate from the bowels of our consciousness. Pluto. All right. Now we have on the 2nd of June, Saturn is still moving forward, and it is in Pisces making a sextile now to Jupiter and the North Node conjunct at 3 degrees Taurus. This is a positive conversation. This is a supportive conversation because what you have garnished and what you have excavated from the May energies is now moving you into June, where you can start to be very aware of the psychological imprint as you take your actions. Because on the 11th, Pluto will re-enter Capricorn, your 3rd house, and it will continue to destruct any structures that are not serving your everyday life. And the 3rd house not only rules your everyday life, it rules your siblings, it rules your cousins. It's another family house that has influence on us. It's also where we take what we've learned about ourselves in the 1st and 2nd house, and we've taken it into our community, in our neighborhood, in our work environment. So that's going to be very powerful. And as Pluto re-enters Capricorn, it's going to stay there until October 11th, and then it will migrate back forward through Capricorn, not re-entering Aquarius until January 2024. So this is really giving you an opportunity to process at your own pace so that you don't have to go to extremes, either villainizing someone else or villainizing yourself. Unnecessary. This is about just information, and the information is neutral. And in that neutrality, it untethers you, it unleashes you, it breaks the chains that have enslaved you to a certain psychology of how you operate. Okay, on the 17th of June, Saturn is having its final day, or I'm sorry, on the 17th of June, Saturn goes retrograde at 7 degrees Pisces. And this is very powerful because the next day, Saturn will make another trine to Jupiter. This time, Jupiter's moved to 7 degrees Taurus in your 7th house. And Saturn is retrograde 7 degrees in your 5th house, romance and partnership, creativity, children, and who I interact with. So as Saturn goes retrograde, you will have an opportunity until November to assess everything that you've experienced in this initial infusion of energy into the spiritual sign of Pisces. Where have I given up my power? Where have I commingled? Where have I been too empathetic, borderline codependent, or actually enabling someone to be out of balance so that I could feel love, but the love wasn't really what I needed? Because 5th and 7th houses are a lot about other people, romance, and partnership. And Scorpio is all about other people and the commingling of that. So there's a lot of really a time for Scorpio to look at the relationships in your life. Are they serving me? Are they serving what I really need in the depths of my soul? Or have I been looking at the structures of my age and my ovaries, or my feeling, am I still current, fresh, and viable out in the world? And if for some reason you've perceived you are not, and then start operating on that less than, Saturn and Pluto are going to mess with you pretty rough. So owning it, owning your beauty, owning the transformational butterfly that you are. You also are ruled by the eagle. In the tarot deck, Scorpio energy is depicted as an eagle in addition to the scorpion. So this really, really powerful connection to the other side that allows you to transform in a way that does not create villains and heroes, but rather hues of villains and heroes within each character. So each person in your life has a little bit of a hero and a little bit of a villain. And as you are able to assess that from your very deep psychological inner knowing, you'll be able to see your co-creation from a place of empowerment versus disempowerment. Well, that was then, but now that I'm aware of it, I can make this decision. I can make this choice. There's a lot of karmic wisdom that is attached to the idea that Saturn is moving into Pisces. And I actually think it's an opportunity to master my connection and my willingness to implement the divine laws of the universe. We're all aware that gravity is a law of the universe. What goes up will come down. But we know that only on the gravity of the earth. We don't know what it's like. I mean, when you travel to the moon, you float around in space. So gravity is not the same there. There are other divine laws on this planet that when we put focused thought, we kick in the law of attraction. But the key to the law of attraction is the law of allowing. And the law of allowing is to believe I deserve and that I am willing and able to receive that which brings me joy, makes me feel fulfilled, makes me feel valued and cherished in this life. Because I think Scorpio wants to feel cherished. And I think all too often it is villainized. And because of the fixed nature of the sign, once you start to feel like a villain, you may act out the part. And the whole time, it's just this big mask of sensitivity that you have. And this, real strong sense of connection that you want. A deep connection, a connection that goes beneath news, weather, and sports, a connection that sees, I see you, like the movie Avatar. So it's a very exciting time for you, Scorpio. Again, your 2022 eclipse access is going to be triggered in May. So don't be surprised if old stories come up for renovation and reevaluation. And it may feel as if, oh, that'll never happen, Uranus. That'll never happen. That guy will never call me again. That's never going to come back around. And sure enough, it does. Whatever you say never, it's pretty much forever. Meaning it'll show up eventually. There is no such thing as never. All right, my Scorpios, that's it from me. Please like, please subscribe, please share, please hit that notification bell, and join me Sunday mornings live when we look at the transits and we get the angels' advice for the week ahead on how to traverse those transits to the highest vibration so that we can really represent the potentials of what this planet is meant to be. And it's meant to be a playground of contrast and empowerment. And it really is like going to Disneyland. And depending upon which ride you get on and how much you've eaten before you get on that ride will determine whether you enjoy it or you just get sick and throw up. All right, it sounds kind of crude, but who knows? All right, guys, that's it for me. Again, please like, please subscribe. I'll see you soon. Peace out.